All right, hey guys, it's Stuart Meacham with Capstan. Today we are at a bar with an Envision on it, and I just want to do a quick video showing you guys how to take the top off this thing, get the filter out, check the filter, replace it, and exactly what we're going to do to rebuild this thing to get ready for anhydrous season. So I've already pulled the bolts out of this Envision. We'll pull the lid off, we're going to set it down, then we'll pull the inner cage out here. All right, so now we've got the lid off. We're going to pull the inner part of the Envision out, or the cage as I like to call it. And you're going to see that this filter is mounted on the bottom. And that filter's inverted, so all your flow is coming in through, going through the filter, coming out of the top here. If you look to the top of this, you'll see the bag down there. Go ahead and pull this out. This is what your Envision filter is going to look like. Now this is obviously brand new. We've already taken this one out and replaced it. At the end of a season, you should see this thing to be discolored depending on how many acres you put through it. You're going to see this thing dark brown, really stiff. Not in great shape, but these things do hold up pretty well. And again, we're going to look to replace these once a year, no matter what. The cost of these things is nominal compared to what you're doing with it. But this is a once a year replacement if you're running in-serve through tanks, especially, or whether if it's injected. Usually you're injecting after the filter itself, but if you're running in-serve through tanks, you may look to replacing this thing more than once a year, but that's situational depending on how much you're running and how big your operation is. So go ahead and put this back in. And you notice whenever you put a new filter in, this ring is pushed out a little bit. So that ring is actually kind of your pressure fitting. So when you set this cage back down in here, you may have to turn it to get it around the inside. That's not completely level with the top. So when we go to put our top back on here, I'll show you in just a second. This is actually, we're going to use the bolts and tighten them like you would wheels on a truck, or in a cross pattern. We're going to sink that thing down. It's going to actually put pressure on the bottom of that ring and collapse it, causing it to seal at the bottom, so to speak. So go ahead and put the lid back on. All right, so notice that there is an O-ring on this new style. Anything after, I believe, 2016, you're going to find an O-ring in here. You're going to want to replace that every time we take this lid off, because it could have been pinched or kinked, and you got to be very careful. You're going to want to grease that up really well. I use red axle grease. Any kind is really fine. Anything that doesn't have any alcohol in it would be preferred, so you're going to degrade the quality of the rubber. But any kind of grease that you have that you can put on here and lubricate this thing and get it to set in its groove. And then we're going to be very careful going back on, making sure that we don't pinch it on the ends and cut it. So now that we're back on top of the Envision, I'm going to start my bolts, sink them down in a cross pattern, get this thing sealed tight. The torque spec on this is in your manual, but I usually go put a good beating on it with the Milwaukee here and sink it down until it's tight, and that usually holds it pretty good. So we'll get back in just a second. I'll talk about the rest of it. All right, so now that we've got the Envision cap back on, we know our O-ring is sealed. Make sure we don't have it sticking out anywhere. The next thing you're going to want to do to make sure this thing's ready to go for the year is each one of these solenoids has an O-ring inside and a plunger. When you buy the rebuild kit from us, it comes with the O-ring for the cap, comes with 4 plungers for each one of these valves, and O-rings to go inside these. We recommend replacing that every year, because a lot of these times these plungers will be worn and run dry in a lot of occasions, so we're going to want to make sure that we change those out. The whole kit, I think MSRP is for under $100, so you're still not out much money to keep this thing going for the entire year. And when you're running this thing, just remember that this filter is meant to be your one stop for the year. So you shouldn't have to be checking this filter. You're not going to plug this thing up. We've had it in a multitude of situations, and we don't end up plugging this filter in any of those situations. So hopefully you guys are back up and running, putting gas down in the next couple of weeks. Everybody out there be safe, and got any questions, give us a call. Thanks.